My name is Shannon. I'm the digital product manager at Rocketbook. So I pair up with Chris in the power duo to run the app.
My name is Chris, and I'm the lead engineer at Rocketbook. And yeah, I'll work with Shannon a lot.
So the objective of the digital product team is really just to be the force that's behind improving the Rocketbook app continuously and making sure that for every product that our users purchase from Rocketbook, they get the absolute most out of it by using it with the Rocketbook app.
New ideas can come from everywhere. It can come from us. We might see some cool new technology.
We also like to think of wild and crazy ideas internally about what if we could do X, Y, and Z in the app. So recently we thought, what if we could put content in the apps? And so that led us to creating the news section within the Rocketbook app, which is on both OSs right now. So feel free to check it out. So once we decide to work on a new feature, our very first step is to look at similar features out there in the wild. So for the news section that we mentioned before, we looked at the New York Times, we looked at BuzzFeed, we looked at a ton of different content providers to see how the absolute best of the best produce content and show that to their users. Then we kind of move on to creating the vision for what we think this feature could be. So for the news feature that I mentioned before, we were visioning all of these types of different features like personalized content, ability to favorite content, but that's a pretty grand vision. And so we can't start right out of the gate building that huge product. We have to start small. So we start with something called an MVP. And MVP stands for minimum viable product. So what that means is an MVP is the minimum amount of feature and functionality that we have to build to test our key hypotheses that we have related to that overall vision. So for the news center, would people even read content in the app? We didn't even know at the beginning. We had no idea if they would consume content.
Then we start discussing and basically just figuring out what is the most efficient and most flexible way of implementing these features.
After I chat with Chris, I create what we call a list of requirements, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet of all of the small things that we need to build in the features.
The requirements for the MVP has two different purposes. The first one is just to make sure that we can test a hypothesis. And the second purpose is just so that we can use those requirements as a starting point for the development process. That way we can start coding all the features and functionality needed in the MVP.
So for example, one requirement for the news center was we needed all of the articles to open up within a web view within the app. And then after we create these requirements, we hand them off to our UI UX designer. Our UX UI designer designed some mock-ups that they run by some of our users for feedback to make sure like what you've built actually makes sense to them before you put it in production. So for example, for the news feature, we had a couple different icons that we were testing with our users during user testing. And we found out some key insights in that one of our icons was completely non-intuitive and it didn't make any sense to them and it didn't relate to news at all. And so that was a really good learning for us before we launched this MVP into the real world.
We started with a pretty basic app. So at that time, we didn't even have a designer. So it was pretty hard to figure out the UI UX.
After we launch the MVP, we gather feedback and we continuously improve the feature until we reach that original vision goal.
Yeah, so right now I'm working on building on those next features. Like right now we're working on building that personalized content for the news center.
For the future of the Rocketbook app, I'm pretty excited to see all the crazy things that we come up with and throw into this app. I think our users are always excited to see and experience new things and new features that we build. So it's a wild and crazy journey, and I'm just excited to be along for the ride.
I'm excited to start incorporating some new technologies that we have been playing with, like AI, more advanced computer vision filters, and I'm pretty sure that we're gonna do some exciting stuff in the future.